Hey guys, I wanted to get into something that's really dark. Okay, so it's really deep, and we're going to talk about Aleister Crowley. We're going to talk about L Ron Hubbard. We're going to talk about Jack Parsons. Hey guys, I just want y'all to be aware that this is going to get really deep. It's going to get a little dark. It's going to be, talk about magic. It's going to talk about black magic. It's going to talk about that kind of stuff, and I just wanted y'all to be aware. But it's going to all come together at the end. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to talk about Aleister Crowley. Now, if y'all don't know who Aleister Crowley is, he is one of the darker persons. He's the reason for a lot of influence in the world. Edward Alexander. He was born to Christians. His parents were both Christians. They were part of the fundamentalist Christian Plymouth Brethren. They were pretty strict in how they believed, but he rebelled against every biblical teaching. His moral values were all off. He received an inheritance when his dad died, which he was able to go ahead and fund his dark philosophy, if you would. He was a magician, a poet, a mountain climber, writer, chess player. He spent lots of his years traveling. He through Europe, Asia, America. He met a woman named Rose, and after they got married, they actually went down to Egypt, and Rose encountered a psychedelic trip, if you would, off of ether, and they actually did some ceremonial magic, and Rose actually Rose actually had a message from Horus. She had encountered the Egyptian god Horus, and all of you who don't know, Horus that would be the eye, kind of like the eye on the back of our dollar bill. Same idea. It's stuff, okay, which we're going to get into. He's most known, though, Aleister Crowley. He's most known for his extensive drug use and his sex magic and his philosophy for his own religion, which he developed, which was called Thelema. Now, Thelema was a Western esoteric, occult, social, ritualistic new religion where the motto was "Do what thou wilt." All right. He was considered to be the father of Satanism and, quote unquote, the left-hand path. Okay. So he had an abbey down in Sicily, Italy, and it was called the Abbey of Thelema. To this day, it still stands, but it's not in very good condition. His idea was kind of trying to make a college for all things magical, or for people that wanted to, practice and stuff like that. He went on to create the Book of the Law after he had another spiritual encounter with the name was Awas. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but the name is Awas, which was a demon. Again, he had some psychedelic trips along the way, which he kind of took hand in hand with the sex magic. It was quite dark, and we won't get into all the details, but he went on to create the Book of the Law. Okay. And the Book of the Law is going to be kind of, if he was possessed, he wrote this book under the influence of what he was supposed to do to help people encounter these beings, if you would. All right. He claimed to be visited by a guy named Lamb, who turned out to be very, very similar in appearance to aliens. I find it kind of weird because, it looks just like aliens. Like, let's be real. It's pretty much looks like this. He was called the world's wickedest man, but rightfully so. He was pretty wicked. He even claimed to be the Beast 666 himself. He influenced many people. He's even on the Beatles album cover for the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts. And I love the Beatles personally, but it is kind of dark to know that. He also was really into backmasking, so he thought that there was messages backwards. There was all kinds of messages, which he turned out to be right. There was messages. There's messages in all kinds of music. There's messages and things, but he was really dark how he got to those ideas. He was openly bisexual. He was an occultist, of course. It was considered to be illegal at the time, the whole same-sex stuff. He was mostly known for black magic and the philosophy for his Thelema religion. Okay, so he picked the exact location of his abbey due to how the sun hit it, and magical stuff. Apparently, if you're in the darkest spot, it's, I guess, the best result. So he did pick that specific spot. He literally searched for it, and right next to it, where that abbey is the Loch Ness monster supposedly has been seen there. And some say that it's due to his wicked practices that he ultimately summoned a demon, which is the Loch Ness. to this day. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it is kind of interesting to know. He participated in blood sacrifices of animals, they say children. I'm not going to say that, but I don't know. He even claimed that he was, his room was the bedroom of nightmares. So I think it's kind of weird that he's really just a bad guy. He was pretty evil. You could just tell in his eyes, you know, he was pretty dark. But Crowley is known to be one of the controversial figures of the 20th century. He made the biggest impact on paganism, on the occult in general. Lots of teachings that came out of his philosophy. So his utopia was that the model of the communion would be a type of magical school, given it designation, something called the Caligulum. Sorry, I cannot say it. Caligulum of Spiritum Sanctum, which basically it just meant that it was a college for the Holy Spirit, if you would, which is total blasphemy. He is nothing holy about him. The general program was underlined with an Egyptian study, okay? It was a study relating to yoga, which if y'all are doing yoga, y'all better stop it, because that is not good. Yoga, ritual practices, general domestic labor. He had students who would devote themselves to the great work or discovering manifestations of their true will or identity. Thelema actually in Greek would be the will. So it's kind of like the Force, if you would, okay? Kind of reminds me a little bit of Star Wars. Not saying Star Wars is bad. I don't know, but kind of questionable. He planned to transform his small house into a global center for magical devotion. You know, that was the idea. Well, he ends up meeting Jack Parsons. And for those of you who don't know Jack Parsons is, I'll just touch base real fast. Jack Parsons is the guy who invented science. Jack Parsons is the guy who invented rocket science. Okay. He was most known for creating the Jet Propulsion Laboratories and Aerojet Corporation. He was the co-founder. They named a lunar crater after him. He was also part of the Galactic Rocket Research, and that group was kind of known for a Suicide Squad, I guess you could say, kind of like, yes, the movie Suicide Squad. Actually, he wrote that the manuscript or the outline for the Suicide Squad, and I'm sure Hollywood changed it up, of course, but the idea came from that being called his group. They referred to them because they were doing explosions, and there was no limit to what he would do. All right. So there was a time that he even accidentally created this toxic cloud, and it went through and it rusted out all of the scientific equipment throughout the building, and it caused 2 explosions at Caltech, which that's where he was employed over there with his jet propulsion laboratories. And it caused them to have to move buildings. And to this day, for being an unorthodox genius, he created solid rock fuel. It helped our allies in the World War II, and also NASA sent a spacecraft to the moon. Let's talk a little bit about L Ron Hubbard. Those of you who don't know who L Ron Hubbard is, he is the founder of Scientology. He also was a science fiction writer, best known for being a science fiction writer in general. That's where he met Parsons, was at a meet for writers. He saw the power of Crowley's teachings in what Parsons was showing him. Okay, so Crowley used to be in a brotherhood together. It was a secret society. It was called the OTO, or I can't really say it right, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But it was basically with quasi-masons, and that's where they learned ultimately all this sex magic and the rituals and stuff like that, alchemy. They basically L Ron Hubbard did see all of the power that was in those practices from Crowley, and he kind of twisted it into his own utopia. Okay, so him and Parsons are known to be friends. They were really good friends. Matter of fact, Parsons, who had a wife, also had a relationship with her sister, and her sister ultimately fell for L Ron Hubbard. Parsons was very jealous about that. Not only was he jealous about that, but he really took it to heart, and him and his wife ultimately did not make it. And what he wanted was to create his own woman. and that like a magical being, except he wanted it to be physical. So he would do a bunch of spells and stuff like that to create this woman ultimately. And when he did this, he thought that he did create it, and he met a woman, a redheaded woman who just appeared at his house. Okay. And she had no idea, being unbeknownst to her, that he had conjured up such a person, and that he believed her to be the person. Okay. Her name was Marjorie Cameron. All right. So, so L Ron Hubbard and him, they lose touch. All right. They go their separate ways. But right before they do, they go out to the desert, and that's where he would perform his jet propulsion laboratory experiments. Was out in the desert. He was doing ritualistic practices of all kinds. He did do many different rituals. He worshipped and would also speak to the spirit Pan, who he believed was out there in the desert. Now, him and L Ron Hubbard went out there with a guy named Victor, which was a disciple of theirs, and they did some ness along with his woman Marjorie. They did all kinds of stuff, and supposedly, as the story goes, they opened a portal. Now, the idea of it was the Whore of Babylon, which is in Revelations. You know, in our scripture, I'm Christian, and in Revelations, it does talk about the Whore of Babylon being the Scarlet woman, okay, which is in, I believe it's Revelations 19. And so that was the ultimate idea here, was that Hubbard spun out, you know, his own idealism of this ritual, and that's what the goal was to create. Okay, so basically, let me tell you what this means. Okay, so Hubbard and Parsons, they would go on to conjure up a ritual for the Whore of Babylon, which allegedly opens up a door or a gate to the other realm, where him and Parsons were said to have been out in the desert, where they practiced innovation magic, and that's magic with a K because they believed in the ancient spelling, opening this gate. And the idea was to birth the supernatural being of a moon child, or a Whore of Babylon, and Crowley's workings, which he did his own philosophy on this. The sex magic was key to the ritual. It was said to have been very powerful, that moment of which, I guess, God is in your relationship of, you know, your intimate relationship, which is why it's so meaningful that you get married and have, you know, the right kind of relationship along with God. All right. So some say that this ritual was successful, and that the reason today that we're seeing all of these different encounters with like aliens and with all of the evil that's in the world, including all of the symbolism and music and all of that kind of stuff, it kind of broke out, if you would, like probably in the last, like, I don't know, 80 years or 60 years, or since this ritual, which this ritual took place in 46, and supposedly it was successful. And with that being said, that takes us to a whole deep dive. All right. So the deep dive is that this Whore of Babylon was created. Okay. So Jack Parsons, about a year later, he has a vision from the actual spirit, and the spirit says that she's alive and in the world and in somebody that they created, who ultimately, as they believe, was Hillary Clinton. Is this a far-fetched idea? I don't know, because then if y'all want to keep watching, I have a lot more to say about Miss Hillary Clinton, and this is all allegedly. Don't take anything that I say to heart, because I don't know. But from the research, if you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? I know people say that a lot, but that's how I'm gonna word that. And if you guys want to know anything else on Pizzagate, check out my next video. It's coming up really soon. Thanks.